What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And of course, we hit you guys with our training camp day 6 takeaways, reactions, unpacking all of those storylines from the sloppy Tuesday practice that the Giants had. But we also do want to react to a separate storyline that came out on Tuesday. Giants went ahead and signed veteran guard Greg Van Roten. Of course, we did a reaction episode last week when they had him in for a free agent visit. We urged the team to sign him. We said they should absolutely get this done. And now that we have some takeaways about the future of Jermaine Illuminor, probably plugging in as a starting right tackle, what that means for Evan Neal as now seemingly the backup right tackle, and really just kind of trying to figure out what the configuration of this offensive line is going to look like by the time week 1 rolls around, which really is right around the corner. Preseason week 1 kicks off within the next week. The Giants play their first preseason game in the next 10 days. Things are ramping up pretty quickly here for the New York Giants and the NFL at large. So a lot going on, and we just want to react to the signing of Greg Van Roten and tell you guys what we think it means for the New York Football Giants. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is your reaction to the New York Giants signing Greg Van Roten?
I'm doing pretty good, and listen, this is a move that we advocated for. Why? Well, he can be a great depth piece, and most likely he's going to be starting for this Giants offensive line. Like, 1 year, $3 million deal. You're getting yourself a starting guard. He's coming off his best season with the Las Vegas Raiders and Carmen Priscillo, joining Jermaine Illuminor over at right tackle and right guard there. So this is a combination the Giants can feel pretty confident about. They know these two guys have chemistry together. They know these two guys have worked well together. They know these two guys have the same offensive line coach they had last year. The Giants might as well just call themselves the Las Vegas Raiders at this point because we're plucking their whole offensive line. And listen, you saw last year the Raiders had, I think they ranked 13th in pass protection and 16th in run blocking. They were above average, in terms of they were slightly below average in run blocking, but pretty above average in pass protection. Now, they didn't have Andrew Thomas, tell you that, and they certainly didn't have, not going to say like John Michael Schmitz is a big upgrade compared to what they had last year at this point, but I do think that JMS can be a very solid player. He just needs a little bit more time development and he needs to get healthy first and foremost. And then John Runnion's a really solid left guard. His preferred destination. The Green Bay Packers moved him from left guard to right guard when they had Elton Jenkins. Really work on a tackle with him. They moved him to the left side. Runyon, solid right guard, but he's a much better left guard. So I do like him going back there. And Greg Van Roten playing his preferred right guard position as well. Last season, this is 2022 I'm looking at. Last season, played 1,025 snaps, gave up 21 pressures and 5 sacks. So played a lot of snaps, and he was pretty solid. Had a couple of really, really good games. In fact, the first half of the year, he was really good. He gave up 3 sacks in that span, gave up 2 sacks during the second half of the year. You keep in mind, you look at Jermaine Illuminor's stats, Anthony, and what I think is really interesting about it is that he gave up, I want to say 26 pressures. Let me just double check for you right now. So last year he gave up 28 pressures. In 2 games, 11 of those pressures and 5 of his 6 sacks happened. He gave up 1 sack over the final 13 games of the season against Pittsburgh and Los Angeles Chargers. He had 2 really bad games, but every other game, he was very, very solid. So, you're looking at Jermaine Illuminor. He may have an occasional bad game, but for the most part, he's going to be really good for this Giants team. He's going to be a starter, and he wants to be here, and that's really important to me. He wants to put that work in, and Carmen Priscillo called him, that's his guy. That's his baby. That's his developmental project that he's invested in. And Greg Van Roten obviously benefited significantly as well. And by the way, one of his best games came against Detroit, who have a very solid pass rush. So, you love to see that. He had really good games against the Buffalo Bills, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Giants. He dominated. He dominated the Jets, who have a tremendous pass rush, the Chargers, who had a solid pass rush. He did well against Miami. He did well against Minnesota. He had a couple spotty performances against Chicago and Indianapolis and Denver last 2 games of the season, but otherwise pretty solid. Listen, I'm gonna say this, okay? I like Greg Van Roten, solid player, but he is not exactly the player you want starting on an above average line. I think he's a good depth piece. He's a competent starter, but you're probably going to experience regression from him this year. And why do I say that? Well, he had a career year last season at how old is he now? At 33 years old. The likelihood of him running that back is very, very low. He gave up 37 pressures in 2021 with the Jets, over only 700 snaps. He played only 354 snaps at Buffalo, gave up 10 pressures. This is a guy that's probably going to experience some regression, but if we can get average play from Greg Van Roten, I'm over the moon. Why? Because the Giants routinely get well below average play from their guard position. So I will take average from Greg Van Roten. That's all I hope for. That's all I'm expecting. Anything more is a luxury, and I'm happy with that. And at $3 million, sign me up every single day of the week. At the worst case, he's a very solid depth piece that has experience at both left and right guard. So I'm cool with it, Anthony. I like this signing. I think it was just a matter of time. I'm happy they got it done.
Absolutely. I pretty much agree with you on all points. Listen, I don't think Greg Van Roten is this Pro Bowler signing or all-pro level signing. This isn't making the Giants a dominant offensive line. However, it's giving them some continuity, which is a big plus. It's giving them some reliability, and it's giving them flexibility. All of those abilities are important abilities. I mean, you look at the way that this Giants offensive line has had to patch things up week by week, rotating doors at left tackle, left guard, right guard last season, even center, moving players around, signing players off the couch, trying this guy here, moving this guy there. It was a blank show last season. It was so tough to watch this offensive line just get patched together week by week. But this year, you can feel a little bit more comfortable with the fact that they have a few key starters, a few guys that they signed in free agency who will immediately upgrade certain positions, and now they're still doing that, adding guys who can reliably be on the field for you throughout an entire season and not get benched due to performance issues. If Greg Van Roten gets benched, it's likely because he's injured, because he's good enough to be in the starting lineup week to week. If Evan Neal gets benched, it's likely because he stinks, and that's a big difference. So you want guys on the field that you don't ever have to bench due to performance issues. Sure, you might take them out of lineup due to injuries, but you don't want to have to bench players because they suck. So having at least 5 average guys on the field at all time at that position gives you one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, because most teams don't have 5 average players. So I commend the Giants for all the way here at the end of July during training camp going out there in free agency and trying to find another average guy, giving them depth, giving them enough bodies so that no matter what happens, no matter what injury they face on the offensive line, they have another able and ready, capable player to step onto the field. That's a huge plus. So when you want to compare Greg Van Roten to other guys around the league, or you want to look back on his career history and the way that he struggled with the Jets in 2021, had some bad years in Carolina early on in his career, sure, all of those things are true, but over the last few years, he has started to come into his own as at least an average player, and under Carmen Bricolo last season, had a career year, like you said, Alex, and that does give me a hope that at the very least we get more average from him, because Carmen Bricolo coming over here, that continuity in coaching style is very important, that continuity in pass blocking scheme is hugely important, and that continuity of playing alongside Jermaine Illuminor will also be beneficial not only to Van Roten but to Illuminor himself. So the Giants can feel like they have more reliability up front, they can feel like they have more durability up front. Illuminor doesn't miss a lot of time with injuries, neither does Van Roten. These are healthy guys, these are capable guys, and this is a very important signing for the Giants. Again, nothing to knock your socks off and make this team feel like it's going to be a championship contender, but to just feel like you can rest your head a little bit easier at night. You got a little bit more comfortability now because you know that the Giants have more capable bodies on the offensive line. So what does this mean for some of these other younger guys like Josh Azidu, Marcus McKethan? Well, I think a lot of those guys are ending up on the bubble now because you can only hold so many offensive linemen. And with Van Roten being a potential starter for this team, you do have to wonder about guys like Azidu and McKethan. Are they now falling into the roles of long-term backups? Are they just going to continue to be developmental reserve guys? Or are they going to end up on the roster bubble? I do think that's a question that gets opened up now that Van Roten has been signed. But again, that's a question, that's a good problem to have, first of all, and it's a question you're okay with asking yourself because you know you at least elevated the floor of the starting 5. So, Alex, kind of what is your reaction to that idea? The fact that some of these younger guys who we've been developing behind the scenes might not get the chance to develop into starters now because the Giants keep adding average players who will probably start over them long term.
I'm not totally concerned about it because knowing this Giants team, injuries are going to strike and they're going to have to play at some point anyway. So just be ready for your opportunity. You know what I mean? If you're a mid to late round pick, like being put in a starting position does not actually help your growth. They need to learn the fundamentals. They need to learn Carmen Bricolo's schematics before being thrust into essential positions. So I do think if you're Marcus McKethan, if you're Josh Azidu, if you're some of these depth pieces, this is your chance to work your way into a position where when you are called upon, you perform well. NFL is all about opportunities. You know what I mean? It's all about capitalizing on an opportunity. If you're a first round pick, you can still lose your job. Take a look at Evan Neal. Lost his job after 2 years. You know what I mean? You know who took his job? Jermaine Luminor was a 6th-round pick, I believe, from like years ago. You know what I mean? It's not about now. A lot of times it's about developing over time, finding your way into opportunities, and then capitalizing when they do come across your desk. So Josh Ezeudu, I 100% believe he will get a chance to start at some point this year, knowing this Giants offensive line. Marcus McKethan, he will 100% get an opportunity to start at some point this year, knowing this offensive line. Be ready when your name is called. Be ready to perform. Understand your assignments. Don't make dumb mistakes. Don't have false starts. Be disciplined. At least play at a competent level, and maybe you work yourself into this equation long term. Think about it. If the Giants are thinking long term here, Greg Van Roten's on a 1-year deal. Right guard's going to be open next year. Who's to say Marcus McKethan doesn't take a big step forward, have a couple of good snaps this year, and take over that job long term? So I think it's not always about right now, but what can you do for me later? Be ready, develop, take steps forward, develop your character, develop your work ethic, develop your fundamentals, and obviously Brasillo brings a whole nother style. So I do think this is much about the growth of these young players and what they can do for us right now. And it should have always been that way. Like Evan Neal not panning out, that killed us. That was a shot to the heart, because we spent a 7th overall pick on Evan Neal to be good, and now he's fallen out of favor so much they don't even consider him a starter at anywhere at this point. So he's going to have to work his way back up. He's going to have to find his groove. Look, best case scenario, Neal develops, finds his way back to right tackle, and Jermaine Luminor starts at right guard. I think that's actually exactly what we would love to happen. That's my optimistic perspective, and Greg Van Roten's a really good depth left guard, right guard. That you want Greg Van Roten playing a depth piece, because that means you have a better player in front of him, right? Evan Neal developing, that's essential to the equation. But for now, we wait and see, and obviously we just hope he gets healthy, because at this point, I don't even know when he's going to come back and actually start practicing with his team.
Yeah, I pray that Evan Neal gets healthy, and obviously the ideal best case scenario for this Giants team is he steps in at right tackle, wins that job, plays well, is the long-term future at that position. But you just can't bank on that happening at this point. Injuries have been a problem, performance problems. We just haven't seen it from Evan Neal. We can't continue to place guys on the field just because they were drafted highly. So the Giants got to win this year. They got to get the best offensive lineman possible out on the field. I hope that Evan Neal becomes one of those guys, because everything else falls perfectly into place if Evan Neal becomes a quality starter, but you just can't bank on it happening at this point. He's not even healthy to return to the field now, and I'm seeing reports now over the past couple of days, doesn't seem like he's going to be on the field anytime soon. So who knows what the future lies for Evan Neal. Honestly, it doesn't look like a bright one. His time with New York is probably going to come to a close within the next year. Very unfortunate to say, but hey, that just is what it is. And the Giants have to cut their losses when they can and make sure that they're not continuing to fail in developing one player that's just not going to pan out. I'm glad that they're making the cutthroat decision of just pulling him out of the starting lineup and putting other guys in, making sure they get the best 5 on the field. Got to respect the Giants for that. But it's unfortunate to see for Evan Neal. It is fortunate to see that the Giants added Greg Van Roten. Very happy with the signing. Think it's going to help elevate their floor. Again, doesn't make them a dominant football team, but it makes them a better football team. And if you're not just trying to get better every single day, what are you doing with your life? That should always be your goal. So happy that that's the goal for the New York Giants, and happy to unpack that and every other piece of Giants information, news, speculation, rumors, all of it right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.